Masterclass recording progress. So I know it's summer, everyone's out and about. What I love about these masterclasses, we will push this out to our community. You can see it on our podcast later. But I am really excited to introduce you to Samantha Kris. So Samantha and I met virtually. Can't meet live because I really want to go to Montreal, correct?
That's right. Or Nashville, whatever comes
Or
first.
yeah, no, yes, no. Definitely Nashville. But we met from Hugh Grace was given an award last year for a top mission award by Real Leaders of Impact. And I was able to meet with Samantha. And I was talking to her and I said, tell me about you. She was actually helping Ben and I figure out some messaging. And I said, tell me what you do. And she started talking and and I'll let you actually give your bio because I will butcher. I don't want to read. I just want to look at you and talk. But she's like, I really work with people and help them get from their last version of success and kind of the visible bridge to their new version of success. And I might be butchering this, so Samantha will be having this the whole rest of this hour. But really, that is what everyone at Hugh Grace has done. We launched just 3 years ago. And had I known back then that not only would we get amazing hair and skin products, but that we're able to create such an amazing community, but be able to offer really professional development and personal development. And I feel like you will be offering both of those today. So I'm going to stop speaking. I appreciate you being here. You're all going to love Samantha, and please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So great to meet you. I'm so happy I've connected with some of you on Instagram already and looking forward to, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, staying connected after. As Sarah mentioned, I am kind of obsessed with this invisible bridge concept. We're going to give it a name. You're going to understand it better at the end of this hour. But a little bit about me. I've done a TED Talk. It's on setting goals that matter. It's really about anchoring our vision in our purpose. We're going to be talking today about how to find that, because that is very overwhelming. I think this concept of finding our why, what is that purpose, can feel very overwhelming. My goal today is to make it a little more accessible, to get you excited about that. If you have that vision already, we're going to refine it further. And if you're sitting there wondering, like, what the heck is my purpose? I haven't found my why yet, then you're in the right place. You can check out the TED Talk. It will kind of further express or explore some of the ideas that we're going to be going through today. I also have a book called Bossing Up. It is about creating opportunities for success both in life and business. So as Sarah mentioned, really kind of blending personal success, professional success, giving you practical tools. Part of this is going to be me kind of laying the stage and giving some food for thought as we kind of explore this invisible bridge, how to cross it, why we're on it to begin with. But for the second part of this, I would really love your interaction. I mean, from the beginning, if you want to ask questions, please do jump in the chat. Feel free to come off mute. But as we go through it, there's going to be some questions to answer. There's going to be some conversation points, some discussions that I want to have. And I would really, really appreciate for you guys to come off mute, turn your camera on. It helps me a great deal. And I have found that particularly with this type of thinking, when we're talking values, we're talking purpose, it's only going to be as valuable as you're willing to integrate it. So whatever we cover today, yes, it will be helpful if you stay in listen only mode, but you're really actually going to be able to see some significant changes in your life as early as this week if you participate, if you engage, and you start to actually reflect on the questions and the prompts that will be provided later. So before we dive in, any questions on what to expect today, who I am, or how to get the most out of this session? Sarah, I might ask for your...
We'll put you, and we'll put, I think, it links to your book and also links to your socials in the chat afterwards. But anybody else?
Great. So I realized in my intro, I didn't even, or my bio, I didn't even really give a title. So I shared some of the things that I've done. It's almost by design, but also because every so often I feel like my bio is kind of outdated. Things move really quickly. Most recently, I became a certified reinvention practitioner. So I help people and businesses reinvent, ultimately going from where they are to where they want to go. And a big part of the work that I do is speaker training. So it's about taking that story of reinvention, bringing it to a larger audience, putting that story on stage, on podcasts, in books, and ultimately helping the people who have lived it to amplify their impact. And from what I have felt in this community so far, in connecting with a few of you, in getting to meet Sarah and Ben, and just following and loving the products and seeing really how The business model is built on empowerment, on community, on helping people really level up. I really think we're in for a treat today, and I'm super excited to dive in with you. So, without further ado, when we think about change, when we think about success or reinvention, it's easy, I think, it's tempting, if nothing less, to look at someone who has reinvented themselves and just see that version of them. We see the uplift, we see the success story, we see the formula. Much like today, I'm going to be presenting a formula, and I encourage you to not just look at what you're going to be presented on a surface level as, oh, this person, whether it's me today, whether it is Sarah tomorrow, someone else in your community, your family, and think, hey, they've got it all figured out. Because we pay little mind to what's beneath the uplift, what's behind the success story, the lived experience that went into extracting that formula. We can forget when we compare where we're at now to where someone is, presumably at a different part in their journey. We don't consider the compromises that they've made, the struggles that they've lived, and the deep inner work that perhaps was required for them to get from where they once were, which perhaps you didn't have visibility into, to where they are now. And we compare our before to their after. But there really is no end destination. There's no destination you arrive at when it comes to reinventing yourself, when it comes to success. It's a continuous process. There is really, truly only ever the before and the during. Michael Jordan never mastered basketball, really. Steve Jobs didn't overcome innovation. They were constantly iterating, always evolving, and forever becoming. And that's really what reinvention is at its core. And it takes a great deal of courage, to be honest, to walk away from what is or what was, to mourn that version of our lives, of ourselves, of our decisions, of what we've built, and move into an energy of anticipation of what can be, and really lean into that possibility. And it's hard, although exciting, although beautiful, although ripe with potential, because it requires of us to challenge our beliefs. We have to really look at what it is that we want to change and why. And that oftentimes requires us to shed some layers, to heal some pain, to free our mind, to listen inward, and perhaps more scary for some is to really embrace that silence and being willing to let go of the parts of our identity that no longer serves us. So by show of hands, how many of you have joined Hugh and Grace because you have recognized parts of yourself and your life that didn't serve you and you are ready to write your next chapter? And put your hands back up if that next chapter feels both exhilarating and terrifying. If you're both unsure of where you're headed and simultaneously feel like you're exactly where you should be. This is the duality that I want to talk to you about today, because that in-between space, when you can hold both emotions, that's where the magic happens. And I've been there too. In fact, I am deep in a season of evolution right now. And it kind of feels like limbo. You're suspended between two realities. At least that's how I feel, kind of between who I was and who I'm becoming. And this no man's land that we enter in this space of transition is a real thing, and it's called liminal space. Maybe drop a 1 in the chat if you've heard of liminal space before. Not a lot of ones. I hadn't heard about it until recently either. Only for me, yeah, okay. This is something, once I discovered it, I kind of haven't been able to shut up about it. So I'm actually quite pleased that I'm in a room where this is a relatively new concept, because once I understood what it was and how to navigate it, things became so much more enjoyable. I wouldn't say easier, but I was able to lean into the unknown and experience that kind of transitionary space with a lot more curiosity. The thing about this space is that it can feel incredibly exciting and also very isolating. It's kind of like a blank canvas. And so when you see what's possible, what you can create, you can feel very creative because you are the artist. You have the tools, but it's also daunting when you don't know what it is that you want to throw out there. It's actually, pretty empowering when you think, wow, I've got this canvas to create the life of my dreams. And then you're sitting there, perhaps with the paintbrush in your hand, thinking, oh gosh, I don't know where to begin. And that feeling keeps so many of us stuck, not knowing where to start, not knowing what to create, how to create it. And this is something I see with a lot of people that I work with. There is a desire for something more. There is a belief that they are capable of something more, but that more feels intangible. So if you're there now and you're feeling like this, there's got to be something else, something bigger, something different. I know that I can access it. I don't know what it is or how to grasp it. Know that you're not crazy and you are not alone. And today we're going to bridge that gap. We're going to cross that invisible bridge, as Sarah mentioned, going from what is or what was to what's next. We're also going to really look at the importance of understanding our values have on really developing confidence in navigating that invisible bridge and blazing the trails as I'm going to assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably a group of trailblazers in this virtual room, the ones who see things differently, who wish to create a different way, a different path forward. And that comes with its own struggles. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but when we are embarking on a journey that is not yet walked, or at least not by many anyway, we're the ones responsible for getting, the debris out of the way, going over and under the logs, for getting a few scratches on our journey. That's par for the course. But well, let's be honest, like this is what we love about this path. The fact that we get to move these obstacles out of the way, the fact that we get to experience them, that we can transfer our knowledge, our wisdom to others who are also keen to create something different. And when creating something, when kind of navigating into the unknown, I really like to see our values as our internal compass. And when that compass is calibrated to meet the needs of the version of ourselves today, but also meets the desires of who we want to be tomorrow. We may not know where we're going, but we can always know that we're going in the right direction. I'm really fortunate to have learned that lesson early in my life. As a kid, I had a really unusual response actually when adults would ask me, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And sure, I thought of being a pop star, an astronaut, all the typical things. But what I really wanted to do was work with criminals. I didn't want to chase them. I didn't want to put them behind bars. I wanted to understand them, to help them. And my sister wanted to be a lawyer, so our childhood games looked a little different than most. While our friends were out playing hopscotch, we were playing Law and Order. And we would line up our Barbies as the jury, our teddy bears as the criminals. And my sister and I took turns being the lawyer and the judge. And I would always lose my case due to circumstantial evidence. She was such a better lawyer than me, and she grew up to be one in real life. And I pursued a career in the correctional field as my insatiable curiosity to understand what drove once good people to make bad decisions grew over the years. And if it sounds like a little bit of an uncommon childhood dream or ambition, it's because of an uncommon turn of events at a very formative period of my life. I was very young when my world was completely turned upside down. And we found out that my best friend Sarah went missing. And we would soon find out that she wasn't coming home. Her life, at just 11 years old, had been taken by her mother's boyfriend, who was deep into drugs. And I thought, if I could help people like the man who hurt Sarah, then I could make this world a better place. So I went on to study criminology and became an addictions counselor by the time I was 19. And I was working with men and women who were largely fresh out of prison, who were court mandated to live in a rehabilitation facility for 3 months, and they were battling addictions older than I was at the time. And while I had the training, I didn't have the life experience really to be able to separate myself from my work, and I became depleted very quickly. And the hard truth was I wasn't cut out for that life, for that job. I didn't feel like I could. And more than that, I didn't want to, but I had worked my whole life to get there. I put all my eggs in this basket, and realizing that this wasn't, in fact, my intended path was heartbreaking. I felt that by walking away from it, not only was I giving up on my patients, but that I would let my parents down, and that more importantly, I would let Sarah down. And that thought was crippling. But so too was the idea of continuing to dedicate my career to something that felt increasingly more misaligned. And it didn't resonate with me anymore. It was only in determining my core values and understanding where that misalignment was coming from that I was able to see another path forward, another path to success. And I was able to grant myself that permission to move on and pursue that intended path. This is the exercise that I'm going to bring with you today, or bring you through today, rather, because this has continued to serve me throughout my professional evolution and has helped me navigate some relatively trajectory altering decisions in my personal life as well. Before we get into the exercise, I will preface this by saying that our core values do change over time, especially if there's been a major life event. By that, I mean having children, the loss of a loved one, perhaps, an unexpected diagnosis, or a job loss. Every time we cross the threshold and re-enter liminal space, it's a good time to get a pulse check on our values and give ourselves grace if we see that we no longer value what we once did. It's okay to change. Arguably a good thing, the only thing we can count on, really. But change will often disrupt not only our lives, but the changes that we choose to make have a ripple effect on the lives and the energy of the people around us. And sometimes they can make us feel like this change is not right, not advised, not helpful for them. And that may be because they've come to rely on you being a certain way. And when you've outgrown that version of yourself, oftentimes their fears are triggered. Fears that you will outgrow them too, or fears of their own that they will remain stuck if they see you being able to enact changes that they don't believe they can in their life. But I feel like you've got a good community, a good support system here in driving some of those change forward. And hopefully with today, you're going to have some additional tools, not only how to implement some of those changes, but to anchor them to your own version of success and to create this common sense of understanding and language with each other, so that as we do inevitably bump up against adversity and hardship and the struggles that come with change, even if they are positive, even if they are aligned with our success, our version of it rather, you will have people to turn to kind of say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing. Hey, remember when we learned this and we walked through this exercise? This is the part of it that I'm at. I could really use some help. So I'm going to bring you through the same core values exercise I bring my clients through. This will be a bit of a crash course. Do keep in mind that I work with my clients on implementing this over the course of 3 months. So it really is a condensed version, but I'm going to give you the tools so that you can take the first step in crossing that invisible bridge and have faith that when you take that step, the road will rise to meet you. So I encourage you to get a pen and paper if you don't have one yet. Sure, you can do this on your phone if you've got your notes open, but I would say pen and paper will probably be most helpful because we're going to get, I wouldn't say overly creative, but we're going to draw some grids and check boxes and such. So I feel like that will help us to really make the best use of this time together and to dive into the exercise right away. So step one in identifying our values, our core values, is really just looking at what values exist? When's the last, we're not taught how to determine our core values. If we're lucky, we've gone through this exercise with the organizations that we've worked with either in the past or currently, and we understand what values are, their importance to communication, to culture, to decision making. But rarely do we take the time to carve out a few minutes to assess the values that I'm living my life by, that are governing my moral code. Are they truly aligned with this current version of me and with where I want to go? Oh, we got a fun whiteboard up here. I don't know where those lines are coming from. This is not part of the exercise. I don't know. That kind of looks like some abstract art. I appreciate it. Is that coming from my screen? I hope not.
I will work on getting that over for you. So just continue on and I'll work on it.
Yeah, no worries. Actually, I'm not going to need the whiteboard. So I'm going to throw up the chart. This is going to look different for everyone. So it actually doesn't serve me to kind of put this on the screen. I will share my screen shortly. But before then, what I'm going to drop in the chat is a list of values. This is not a fully comprehensive list, okay? This is not a list of all values that exist ever, but it is a good starting point. And if you're type A like me, you're going to appreciate that it is alphabetical. And what I want you to do is to just skim this list, take 2 minutes and write down the words, okay? Not even at a value level necessarily, but the words that resonate with you. Did everyone get it in the chat? Great. So this is meant to be rather unstructured. You don't have to put it on a scale of how much it resonates to how little it resonates. Here, I'm just looking to capture the words that when you read them, you think, this is part of me in some way. Think about the way that you show up in the world, how you think, how you act, how you feel, how you communicate. And jot down the words that help steer you in the direction and how you show up. We do have a couple people in the waiting room seeing. Don't know, Sarah, maybe you can, or don't know if anyone else is managing that.
Yep, we've got them. They sometimes just take a moment to pop in. We've got it for you though.
Thank you. All right, so we'll take an extra few seconds. Do keep in mind this is typically a 3-month process. So if you're feeling like, oh my goodness, I have not gotten through this whole list, don't sweat. I want to show you how to do this so that when you have some more time on your own, you're able to continue this thinking, pull this through, challenge it. That's going to be some of the biggest value you get from this, is actually applying it to your day-to-day interactions. And so do not be mistaken in thinking that in looking at this glossy PDF, that you're going to emerge with a solid understanding of your core values if you've never done this thinking before. Really, to set expectations, this is kind of step 1 in identifying what these values can be. All right, so we're not worrying about how many values make the list here. We're just circling or highlighting or writing down the ones that feel true to us. Step 2 is going to be categorizing these values into 3 buckets. Okay, bucket 1 is aspirational values. Aspirational values. So these are values that you admire and you exhibit them at times, but you aspire to embody them more. So, for example, perhaps you admire or you circled, the word or the value of decisiveness. That is something that feels very true to you. You can be decisive when needed, but maybe you look at this value and you think it's actually more in the aspirational category, because although I have the ability to be decisive, I wish to improve the way I make decisions more quickly, more confidently, more effectively. So this value, although you embody it, you do exhibit it at times, is more of a value you want to work at strengthening. The second bucket is aligned values. These are the values that are very present in your life. They support the way that you think, act, and feel. However, and this is the big differentiator between aligned and core, is that when you are upset, when you are triggered, or you're caught off guard, you are likely to lose sight of your aligned values. Just because a value is in the aspirational or the aligned bucket doesn't make it any less important. You can and still, should put these values, like integrate them into the way that you're showing up, leverage them, pull on them as levers as needed to have a fulfilling life. It just means that these aren't the values that guide your moral code. They are not the ones that will help you recalibrate your internal compass. They will surely come in handy on your path of navigating success, of embarking on change. But they are not necessarily core. And we know this because when you get triggered, these values perhaps get thrown out the window. So, for example, maybe one of the values that you've identified that resonates as true for you is calmness. You look to bring serenity to your busy mind. You move with a calm demeanor. You encourage calmness in others. However, when you receive constructive criticism, for example, perhaps your serenity goes out the window and you become anxious and defensive. This starts to point us to the values that are more truly core, that help us recalibrate that compass, that govern that moral code of ours. Core values, this is the third bucket, are non-negotiable. They are inextricable from who you are. Most importantly, for the sake of this exercise, core values are present even in conflict. So, for example, one of my core values is empathy. I seek to understand people, to feel how it is that they're feeling, possibly share that experience with them. And even when I am wronged, even when I am deeply hurt, when I am in a moment of absolute conflict, I can still remain empathetic. I will ask questions. I will hear the other person out. And I will, to the best of my ability, try to hold their feelings as well as my own. There's a lot of definitions on values and core values, and this isn't to say that, this definition is one that you ought to adopt as your definition of values. But for the sake of this exercise, that distinction is going to be very important. Aspirational are the ones that we admire, that we wish to exhibit more frequently, even if they are part of us now. Aligned values are the ones that are very present in our life. They support the way we think, act, and feel, but the moment we're caught off guard or we're in a moment of conflict, we lose sight of those values. And core values are the ones that are inextricable from our character, from the way we show up, even in conflict. So I'd like for you to take a couple minutes to categorize the values of the words that you wrote down. And I'm going to put the definition of the 3 categories in the chat as well, just so you've got that as kind of a touchstone if you need to refer back to it. So of the words that you highlighted, circled, wrote down from the prior step, I'm sorry, that could have come through a little more clearly. Could have broken that out. But in any case, you've got the information there about the 3 buckets. Put those words, plug them in to the bucket that feels best. And for the rest of our time together today, we're really going to be focusing on the core bucket. So for that, we're looking for a maximum of 5 values. If you don't get to kind of whittle it down to 5 today, no problem. Again, the real value in this exercise is going to be in pulling it through your day-to-day interactions. So you may find that you have 12 in your core value bucket. I'm willing to bet that you don't actually have 12 core values, 12 values that are inextricable from who you are, 12 values that even in conflict are so present that they are part of you. But for today, if you have 12, that's fine. And we're going to look for clues. We're going to look in moments of conflict, in moments where we're setting our goals, where we are in pursuit of those goals. Are these values present? Can you either drop a 1 in the chat or just give me a thumbs up if the instructions are clear and we're all good so far? Awesome. Great. Thank you. All right, so do take a couple minutes. Think about times which you have been um, perhaps morally outraged. Maybe you see something on the street, in your community, at work, something has happened and you have felt so compelled to take action, to say something, because something has been triggered in you that you cannot stay quiet about. This points to something core in you. Explore that further. When you think about the people who you look up to, who best represent your vision of success or your feeling of success, what do they have in common? This will point to something core as well. And also think about when you are feeling most like yourself. Think about where you are, who you're with, what you're spending time on, and see if there are clues that you can extract in those circumstances, those environments, those relationships that may point to something core as well. Give you a few more seconds here. If you've ended up with more than 5 in your core bucket right now, for today, just choose 5 that you feel are the strongest. And maybe that will change tomorrow. That's totally fine. But the 5 today that resonate with you most deeply in this moment. And I will reiterate that this exercise we're about to do is rarely, it rarely yields the values, your core values, spot on the first try. So I have a lot of clients who get frustrated because they put, a great deal of time into thinking what their core values are. They believe that these were really core, and then they go through this exercise and they start to integrate this in the day-to-day, and they're like, I don't know. I don't know that this is true for me anymore. And that can feel a bit disorienting. I like to think of it as a bit of an iOS upgrade or update for, I think everyone is probably a smartphone user at this point, right? But when we start to kind of glitch out and things, yeah, we can get by, but we're not optimizing at full capacity. We're typically approaching an outdated operating system. And the value exercise is going to help to facilitate that upgrade, to spot where these glitches are coming from, where we're bugging out and why, and what we need to focus on in order to get to that kind of next step in our evolution. So we're going to map the core values to the key areas of focus in your life to determine where you are operating in full alignment and where changes might be required. This assessment is actually helpful in 2 ways. We're going to start first by assessing how you show up in each area of your life and if it's in alignment with your values. So let me share my screen just so we're all following. You kind of know. Right, so these are the key areas of focus for your life. So we're going to be looking at work and career, creative projects, relationships, finance, family, spirituality, social life, physical health, and mental health. We're going to take a look at the 5 core values that you took. We're going to map them across the top and start looking at, are we showing up in these areas of our lives, with these values at the forefront? So if you chose integrity as one of your core values, for example, are you bringing integrity into your work? If so, check it off. Go down that column. Are you bringing integrity into your creative projects, into your relationships? We won't go through each one again, but the idea here is to start scoring and recognizing, am I showing up with these values? Are they truly driving me forward? Are they the internal compass that's guiding me to my next step? What this does is it provides a really helpful visual for where there are gaps in your value system. And it helps very clearly to illustrate one of two things. If the boxes are unchecked, it would suggest either this value is not truly core to you because you're able to function and be happy and pursue your vision of success without it. Or more likely, it is in fact core, but there is an unmet need. There are changes you need to make, things you need to do to be living in greater alignment with this value. So if you see that you are not bringing a great degree of integrity to your work and career, ask yourself, especially if there are multiple boxes unchecked, is this value truly core to me? And if so, what can I be doing to be living in better alignment with this value? How can I bring more integrity to my work? What change do I have to make? What conversation do I need to have? Who do I need to ask for help? So I'll keep this up. Question we're looking to answer here is, are you showing up in alignment with your values in these key areas of focus? And you may only get through one value for today. Again, this is a very condensed version of something that takes a few months to do. Don't panic if you don't get through it. We're going to move to the next step, which is the same framework, except phase 2, we are in this current phase, we are assessing how we are showing up in alignment with our values. Phase 2 is going to be taking this same framework, flipping it back on us, kind of holding up the mirror and saying, are these key areas of focus of my life showing up for me in a way that aligns with my values? So same template, question changes. Are they showing up in a way that yields a return on energy invested? So when you look at your career, when you look at the company that you're working with company that perhaps you've stepped away from so that you can join Hugh and Grace, with your creative projects, are they delivering? Are they returning that energy back to you that you're pouring so much of your value system into? Your unchecked boxes here will still point to changes that need to be made. But where this is increasingly helpful, as you look to better assess, are these values core? Am I showing up with these values at the forefront of my, the way I think, act, and feel? And am I getting return on this energy invested? Where this is really helpful is seeing where the areas of focus in your life are falling short for you. Perhaps you're in a relationship in which you don't feel there is a lot of integrity. Maybe compassion, communication is a big value of yours, and you're starting to recognize, oh, I'm not getting that returned from the relationship that I'm in. Or my social life. I invest so much. I'm so transparent. I put a great degree of care into the communication and the relationships that I have with my friendship circle. I don't feel like I'm getting that same compassion or transparency or communication back. And where you see unchecked boxes, there's typically either a value that is being unmet, a value that is being compromised, or a value that is being, what's the word I'm looking for? Violated. So we want to pay attention to these unchecked boxes, because these are the things, when I talked about earlier about getting the kind of the sticks off our path and dodging trees that have fallen as we start to blaze this trail, we're making it harder on ourselves if we keep these values unaddressed, unchecked, unsatisfied. And by understanding, turning over the rocks and realizing, what questions do I need to ask? What conversations do I need to have? What changes do I need to make to live in more alignment, but also to get a return on the energy I'm investing in showing up with these values? Makes success all the more possible, makes our definition of success all the more tangible. This does require a little bit of creativity, particularly when it comes to finance. Finance and spirituality are the two where sometimes it's a little bit challenging to see how values can show up for us. So, for example, um, you know, we're not, this is not an exact science. We're not going to try and force something to fit the framework if it's not working. But if one of your core values is creativity, and you're thinking, how does that apply to finance? Maybe in the way that you're showing up for this key focus of area in your life for finance, are you creative in creating multiple streams of revenue? Are you being creative in what you're learning, in courses that you're taking, in experts that you're learning from, sitting in on master classes? But then when you think about turning it inward and you think, is finance showing up creatively for me? If you can find a way to make that work, and there certainly could be, great, but don't break your head over trying to fit the value into these buckets so much as understanding, does this area of focus feel like it is in alignment and that I'm getting out of it what I'm putting in? Similarly, for spirituality, you might be wondering how to apply some of your values to that. When I say spirituality, think about the communities that you're part of, the practices that you integrate in your day to day, the people who best support you on your path to spirituality. And if you're not a spiritual person, then don't fill out this row. That's fine. Swap these out as needed. Make a simple swap, true to Hugh and Grace, and make this your own. But really, what we're looking for are holes in the boat. We really want to spot these holes early so that we can stay afloat. We can catch them. And ultimately, we want to plug the energy leaks. We do not want any of our valuable time, energy, resources to be siphoned from these key areas of focus in our life out of negligence. We have the ability to spot the holes in the boat now. Let's do it. Map your core values. See where there are opportunities to live in better alignment. And start to think about the changes that might be required of you to do so. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I want to make sure we're all still feeling good. We're all still on the same page. There's a lot of me talking here. Good, thanks, Tammy. All good. Got some thumbs up. Okay, great. So we'll move into kind of the discussion piece. I'm going to put some questions up. Take some time to answer them. And then I would really love if anyone is feeling courageous enough to come off mute and to share some of what has come up as a result of doing this exercise, what has come up as a result of the reflections that you're going to jot down. Because part of the power in this is recognizing that we're not alone, is in recognizing that integrating our values, recognizing our values is challenging. It brings up, it surfaces parts of us that either we weren't ready to face, we thought we'd already faced. It can be very exciting where we think, oh shoot, our ambition is actually way bigger than we thought it was. And what do I do now that this is like, I've unleashed this part of me? I can't contain it. I don't want to contain it. Knowing that you've done that in good company with others can really help when you actually like rubber hits the road and we're off this masterclass and you're in your regular life and you're thinking, how do I show up with these values? How do I recalibrate that compass? Knowing that we've had these conversations to fall back on is really helpful in recognizing that, hey, we're all in this together. Again, there is no before and after. There's really, truly the before and during. So I'll put these questions up. So if you see that there are some boxes unchecked for values that you've identified as potentially core, I would ask you, what do you think is blocking you from living in full alignment with those values in those areas of your life? And how is that misalignment impacting you? Said differently, what is the cost of inaction? And that's something I really want to get clear on before we leave today. It's not enough to recognize that these areas of your life may be unfulfilled or may need some attention. But there is a cost of inaction. If you have this awareness and you do nothing about it, and it's not that just nothing changes. If nothing changes and you're in the same spot 3 years from now, even 6 months from now, there is a negative implication on your energy, on your mindset, on your confidence, on the momentum that you could have started today. So I really want to look at how staying blocked is impacting you. And if that makes you a little bit uncomfortable and anxious and slightly fearful, good. Light the fire a little bit so that you feel compelled to move. Then I really want to get honest with ourselves and with each other. What have you done to overcome these blockers in the past? And the answer might be, shoot, not a whole hell of a lot. I have been too afraid. I have been too paralyzed. I have been too busy. I have not known where to start. That's fine. This isn't about judging why you haven't overcome them. It's about recognizing what that blocker is so that we can either move over it, around it, through, or we're not staying stuck anymore. Then I want you to commit to doing something to overcome these blockers in the next 24 hours. And this, again, is going to be helpful for those of you willing to come off mute and share what's coming through for you, because we have the accountability of the group here today. Something you commit to doing in the next 24 hours, within the next 7 days, and within the next 4 weeks. So what I'm looking here is for 3 actions, something you can do today, this week, and this month. All right, that's enough of me talking. I'm opening the floor. What came through in terms of values? Anything that shocked you? Anything when you look at how these values are showing up for you that you realize, there's some areas that need some focus? Any thoughts on blockers? Would love to hear from you guys.
Don't be shy. I know you guys are not shy. I can always talk. You hear enough of me talking. I would love to hear from you guys.
This is a good opportunity too, if you just have questions, if you're looking at this and you think, hey, did I fill this out right? Like, does this make sense? Maybe you just want something, a thought validated. You have a bit of uncertainty into, how to pull this through. We've got 10 minutes left together, and I'd really like to use this time to make sure that you take this tool, you integrate it, and if it's helpful, maybe we'll bring this up. Reinventing success. Maybe this is something that you can prompt further thinking, or that you may. Yes, Rachel, if you have a question, please do ask. You can come off mute. How do you incorporate all of this when in a relationship? Great question. I might need a little more clarity on incorporating what parts of it.
Sorry, I did come off mute. That's okay. When in a relationship, like immediately when I look at all this, being in a marriage and, raising kids and everything, I'm like, okay, so I have my own values and my own pieces, but then I immediately want to have my husband do this alongside of me. So almost then to move forward to create, like, I guess, as a family, that kind of like almost apply this as a couple to all these categories, right? Because we're intertwined, and that's so important for me to move forward in any of these, to have, right? I mean, that's important. I mean, I know this. I mean, I know I'm my own person, but also that was my question. In a relationship, how do you navigate that then?
Yeah, the family values is really a great idea. It's something that a few of my clients have done, where it's like, as a unit, what do we value? What are we working together towards building? What is important for us to respect and maintain and build upon and assess? Either, month over month. I know a lot of my clients have kind of relationship dinners where these are scheduled on a monthly basis. They have certain questions that they ask each other, just kind of pulse check and saying like, hey, given what we value, what we're working towards, are we on the right path? Is there anything that we need to get ahead of and evaluate and tweak so that we can continue to live in alignment with these values? So certainly doing this as a couple, as a family, I think would be very helpful. I also think as an individual, where this serves you is recognizing where there are your personal values that are going unmet or underappreciated, because this will prompt really incredible conversations in your relationship, in your family unit, in the systems that you're part of, right? In your community, in your work as well. We are made up of the relationships that we have. When I ask people often who they are, what they do, their bio, so often is I'm a mother, I'm a business owner, I am, a community member. Like this, we are a collection of our relationships. So this does not exist outside of the relationships, but it serves as a great tool to help understand how we can show up better in these relationships. And if there's something that we feel is going unmet, it helps us clearly see where there are holes in which we can better ask for help, for support. And it's possible that some of your values in certain seasons of your life are compromised. That might be a choice you are willing to make. That in this season, although this is really important to me, we as a unit, we as a family, we as a couple need to focus in other areas, which doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means that the energy is needed elsewhere. But having that visibility and doing this exercise helps to facilitate those conversations with a little more ease. Again, because we're using a similar framework and similar language, you have a lot less friction because we're not talking different languages. We're not coming at it from different angles. And we're able to see, okay, this is really where I can be showing up more for you or for us or for the family. Is that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Thank you. And it's all divine timing. So I think this is exactly what I needed to hear today, to be able to sit and reflect and have this conversation, because things like this have been coming up, and this just gives beautiful ways to be able to see myself more deeply and then connect with my husband. Yeah, I see that. Yes. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And that's a really good point. I'm happy you brought that up, because sometimes, we experience these moments of friction or conflict, or just like, why are we not seeing eye to eye here? And without a framework, and I say framework, but use that synonymously with just a way to understand and to communicate in the same fashion. Oftentimes we're actually saying the same things, we want the same things, but we're not using, a common approach to get there. And so this is helpful in understanding, again, what's important, why, and then visually being able to see, oh, I see why you're so frustrated, or why this bothers you so much. I didn't realize this was truly core to you. And now that I can see that it is being unmet in all these areas of your life and our relationship in our family, whoa, does that bring a heck of a degree of perspective. And so there's a lot of compassion in going through this together as well. Any other questions or any observations?
I'll share. So this is great. Thank you so much for your time and spending with us. I was just thinking about how, identifying our core values in regard to Hugh and Grace. And I've been doing a lot of soul searching and digging in my own life. And I think that so much of our values come from, how we're created, obviously our experiences, but like for me personally, like I look at a list and go, oh, I wish I was the total hard driver. I wish I was the, all of the descriptions that you think of as being someone who crushes a business like this. But what I've realized is our core values are really probably where our strengths lie. And like for me and those who know me and Hugh and Grace, it's, more about building community and connection and, pouring belief into people. And so I don't know, just as we've been going through this, that just keeps coming to me as far as like, wow, we're all different. And that list describes so many of us differently and how we can power partner together better. But yeah, I think, sometimes our strengths we overlook, we don't see them as strengths and then, or a value, and then realizing, wow, we need to really step into that to better serve our community and each other in this business.
And the more you recognize what those values are, the more you can live according to your design, according to those values, and you make space for other people with other values and other strengths to collaborate. And this too, I encourage you guys, we're about to wrap up now, but to keep the conversation going as best as you can amongst each other, share the values that surface, leverage the fact that you can bring different things to the table. And I do encourage you to overlay these values into your work with Hugh and Grace and see how you can pull them through in the way you communicate, in the way you share about the products, in the way that you serve as advocates for this company. By the way, Sarah, these products are amazing. I'm already done the scrub, and my lip mask. My dog also loves it. I like accidentally wore it and kissed his nose, and he just loves it so much. So he has a little dry nose from summer, and he's a big fan. But I digress. The values are really important in the way that you connect with the company, with the brand, the way that you show up for your audience, the way that you show up for each other. And if I suspect you will have some questions as you start to pull this through in your day-to-day, please reach out to me, Instagram, LinkedIn, my website, anything that makes sense. I'm available to you. And if you need additional support in filling out this exercise, don't stay stuck.
Samantha, I'm gonna actually, I met with Samantha, and then Ben came and sat down next to me for a little bit. And so Samantha also got to meet Ben, and he sent me notes, and we were just talking about like, what were we building with Hugh and Grace? I'm going to read this to you from the email. And Ben's actually said, our job is to help our advocates see their value and truly believe it. Our advocates selling our products is a byproduct of their self-worth increasing. And so I just love that we get to do stuff like this, bring on and partner with amazing people to be able to help people increase their self-worth. And that's you as advocates, that's what you're doing with your teams. That's what we're all doing together. And so to be able to be here, share time. Samantha, I'm getting texts about how calm and soothing your voice is. I truly appreciate you doing this, because Samantha's also doing this for free. Like, she usually charges for this guy. She's a top TEDx speaker. You didn't sell yourself as much as I'm gonna do, but like she is sought after. And the fact that she said, I want to come on and do this for your advocates, it just speaks volume of her. I know she's in Chicago right now, traveling. Really, really appreciate you being on here. We will email out this recording. We'll get links from Samantha for all of this stuff. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. And I just appreciate you all.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Sarah, for having me on. If I can leave you on one little note, it's funny you mentioned my voice and the calming nature. That is when I stepped off stage for my TED Talk, I saw one of the other speakers backstage, and he was like, "You're so soothing. That was so zen." And I was so pissed. I was like, "Oh, that was a TED Talk on goal setting. Like, I wasn't intending to zen out. Like, I want you to feel lit up. I want you to feel like this has got like a fire under you." And the more that I recognize that my values are compassion, that my values are empathy, that I was able to like show up in a way that I felt much more me, like I didn't see that as a threat. And when I was able to recognize this is actually coming from a deeply rooted place, and I don't need to show up as this raw speaker, that I can bring that compassion, that empathy in the way in which I communicate, allowed me to feel much more in alignment with my vision of success and kind of let go of some of what I thought a good speaker ought to sound like or look like. So just another example of how understanding these values and applying them in the day-to-day can really help govern our decisions and feel much more confident in our path.
I love it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.